Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the TCT Podcast here on YouTube. My name is Gavin Campbell. Alongside me, as always, Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming. Today on the rundown, we got some MLB free agency, as well as some MLB. We got to talk about the All-Star game. Got some interesting standings to talk about. Kind of a little flip-flop going on that we didn't really expect that we'll get into later in the show. But Cale, go ahead and take it away.
First off, we're going to lead off with some NBA free agency. Kind of some two big topics that happened since Friday when we were here. Jabari Parker, number one, signs a 2-year, $40 million deal with the Chicago Bulls. His second year, though, is a team option, so therefore the team could decide to do with whatever they want with him in his second year. Gavin, what do you got?
First of all, let me address the contract situation. $40 million for this guy. This was a player last year that averaged 20 points and 6 rebounds a game. I think this is similar money to what Zach LaVine is getting, a little less, which we already talked about that last week and how we feel about Zach LaVine getting that kind of cash. Chicago, I think this is a good move for them. The contract, second year being a team option, this is obviously a win-win for the Bulls because they get him for 1 year to see what he can do. If he doesn't come back the same player from injury, then they go ahead and let him go. If he does, they can go ahead and ink him to that second year on that deal, and the Bulls are looking to move forward with that core of Lauri Markkanen, Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, now Jabari Parker, Wendell Carter Jr. That's a pretty good core there with Bobby Portis presumably coming off the bench, depending on what the Bulls want to do there. I really like this signing. I don't really have too much else to say about it. We'll have to see how Jabari comes back. Like I said, this is a guy that's capable of scoring 20 points a game. It's just, can he stay healthy at this point?
Well, he's capable of scoring more than that per game. The main issue, like you talked on, is just that ACL, getting healthy, getting ready to play, and staying healthy. But in his last couple of years, he's averaged 16 points a game, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. So he hasn't played bad, even not playing very many games with those injuries and whatnot. He's the original second pick of the 2014 draft. He's good. He balls out. We've seen it all the way from college up into his days through the NBA. He can play. It's just a problem of staying on the court with him.
This is something that's interesting, though. You have to wonder why Milwaukee let him go, because he was restricted this year. Coming off his fourth year in the league, this was something that was kind of surprising to some people. Maybe if you're not a Bucks fan, then you really wouldn't know what was going on. But I mean, to me, that Milwaukee let him walk, essentially. They would have had to think that he's not going to come back as the same player. This is kind of similar to the DeMarcus Cousins situation in New Orleans when they didn't want to give him a max deal because they were unsure of his future and how he was going to come back. Being young, I think this is a good thing, though, because DeMarcus, we know he's coming up on 28, 29 years old. Probably not going to be able to develop the muscle structure like Jabari will be able to. He's only, 21, 22 years old. 22 years old right now in the league. So being young, I think he'll be able to come back from that. And like you said, yes, he's obviously capable of scoring over 20 points per game. But I think this core that they have right now, they'll be able to spread the points out and really get a nice piece that can play the 3 or 4 position. And Jabari, like I said, if he can come back healthy, he's going to be a great addition to this Bulls team.
It don't matter how young you are. If you shred the same knee twice in less than a year, that poses some problems. I don't think that Jabari Parker, or $20 million season, 1 year, I feel like that's way too much for somebody that's 22 years old and shredded the same knee. We saw him at Duke with Coach K. He can put up amazing numbers, but the fact that he's already torn his ACL in the same knee twice, that's kind of concerning to me for somebody that's going to earn $20 million in 1 year.
Right, and real quick, that's a fair point, and I really like that you brought that up, which is why it brings me back to the contract in itself and the fact that it's only for 1 year. So yeah, the Bulls are shelling out all this money, but it's not like they're trying to make a finals appearance or anything like that.
Right. This is a long way from a finals appearance.
This is a team that's going to struggle to make the playoffs this year, even in the Eastern Conference, which is something they're still capable of. But with that said, that's why the second year is a team option. So they have.
They're just trying to see if this guy can still play.
Absolutely.
Right? So they figured they lock him down for a couple years if they need to, but if he doesn't show that he can still play, they can just dump it and it's like it never happened. It's not too bad. I was going to say on the contract situation, it's similar to the Zach LaVine contract for me. I think $20 million was a little bit too much each year. I don't think neither one of them's a $20 million a year player. Now, a couple years down the road, maybe, after we see what they can do. A little bit too much up front, but in the end, they're still getting a decent player who's got good potential. So we'll see where it goes.
Absolutely. He had 31 games last year with the Bucks before he went out with that second injury. 24 minutes a game, 12.5 points, 5 rebounds. I think these are solid stats for someone that's not playing full minutes. Like, he's a legit NBA player. So when he's able to come back and play 32, 36 minutes a game, I think that he'll be in good shape. But like Cale said, we'll have to see how that knee is doing. He tore the same ACL that he tore when he was at Duke, or when he came out of Duke playing for the Bucks in his rookie year.
Rookie year, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, we'll have to see how he comes back healthy. I mean, we've already seen it. You know, guys like Derrick Rose and tear ACLs in both of his knees, and we've seen how that's hindered NBA players. But, I mean, we look at guys, you know, that play a more physical game in the NFL. We've seen Adrian Peterson tear his ACL. The year after, had the greatest season of his career, one of the greatest seasons for a running back the NFL's ever seen. So it's really hit and miss with these ACL injuries, how bad the tear is, where it occurred. So, obviously different sports, but we'll have to see how he bounces back.
Who do you guys think is going to be the starting 5 for Chicago now with this Jabari Parker signing, along with you got Wendell Carter, their draft pick, and who's putting up phenomenal numbers in the summer league. You got Zach LaVine coming back on this, you know, this monster deal or this offer sheet with the Kings. So who do you feel like is going to be your starting 5?
Well, I think Wendell Carter and Lauri Markkanen, it's your clear 4-5 right there. I don't think that's going to change, which kind of sucks for Bobby Portis. Because he's a good player. He's shown that he likes playing for the Bulls, and he's shown that he can actually play. But I think he takes a backseat in this situation at the 4 and 5 position.
Real quick, there's a reason that the Bulls kept Portis in when him and Mirotic had their incident last year. The Bulls kind of backed Portis in that situation and pushed Mirotic out the door to New Orleans. So you have the organization behind you. You have to think that they see something there in Portis.
Agreed. And you just signed Zach LaVine to this major contract. So I've got him in my starting one of the 2 guards. Chris Dunn up there as well. And I'd really like to see Denzel Valentine.
You about said Washington.
I did. I'd like to see Denzel Valentine start playing like we know he can, like he did up there in Michigan State. But right now, I figured they paid Jabari Parker this money. They might as well make him play. So I think you got Dunn, LaVine, Parker, Markkanen, and Wendell Carter Jr.
I would agree with that starting 5. But one thing that I was wondering is how is Bobby going to take this with Wendell Carter coming in, because he already did lose some minutes to Markkanen this season. It's kind of a head scratcher on. I'm not going to say why they brought Wendell Carter in, but you would have to think that have they talked to Portis about the situation yet? You know, preseason's just around the corner here in a few weeks, and although, like I said, I do agree with your starting 5. I feel like Bobby could see more minutes off the bench than we're used to, maybe around the 28-minute mark, possibly. Kind of like a Lou Williams situation, obviously at a different position. But if he's comfortable with that, I think you have probably a top 5-6 man in the league at that point.
Well, and none of those 3 bigger guys, Jabari, Wendell Carter, or Lauri Markkanen, they're not 48 minutes a game players.
Right.
Especially Parker and Wendell Carter. They're not going to be playing 48, 42
LeBron
minutes a game. Yeah, they're not playing full LeBron minutes.
Right. They're not all-stars, obviously, but if Bobby could, you know, get those 28 minutes a game like we know that he's capable of playing, I mean, that kind of poses the question of, okay, even though someone else is starting, could he potentially get more minutes off the bench in that role?
I want to see him on the floor right off the bat. I want to see him start. I feel like he's deserved the starting time. And like you said, with that him punching Mirotic, and the Bulls are going to sit here and back him, why would they pull him off of the bench? Why wouldn't they throw him out there? He's got more NBA experience than Carter. I feel like right now he's a little bit stronger than Carter is for the fact that he has the NBA experience. And you can't pull Markkanen, you can't pull him off of there because he's basically the only proven scorer and the only guy that scored last year with effectiveness. And he can shoot from the 3 very well. Right. I feel like Bobby should earn some time in starting and not Wendell Carter for the fact that he's not experienced enough.
And that, real quick, that's fair. And I would not mind if he did start and they brought Carter off the bench just for the reason that he's a rookie, get him acclimated to NBA basketball. But when you look at what Carter Jr. is doing in the summer league right now against NBA talent, yes, it's young guys, it's rookies and sophomores, but he's an animal right now. I say start him right off the bat.
I'm not going to disagree with you the fact that Wendell Carter's not an animal. He's a dog and he can score. But Bobby Portis has proved himself over somebody is proving himself in the summer league against rookies and sophomores. Why can't we start Bobby, which we'll figure that out, like you said, in a couple weeks. But I feel like Bobby should start over Wendell Carter.
Where Bobby Portis play college ball at?
Arkansas.
Okay. Hey, tell me, how good was Arkansas in the time that he was there?
They were not very good, but he did carry them to an NCAA tournament appearance.
Yeah, so he played on he was the best player on a bad team. I'm not saying he can't play, but Wendell Carter Jr., he played well all year, every year throughout his college time on a good team, on a top 5 team. And he was there every night, and the nights even when Bagley didn't show up, Wendell Carter was there. Not saying that he's proving himself in the NBA because of his college stats and whatnot, but this dude's consistent. He's as good as they come for his position and the stats he can put up all over across the board. I'm not saying Bobby hasn't earned that spot, but at the same time, you just drafted this guy number 7 overall. You got to play him. He's there for a reason. You got him for a reason. I would like to see Bobby start, but at the same time, he hasn't started since he's been in the NBA. A couple games the last couple years, just because.
Well, he was also a part of the tanking process in Chicago. So
yeah, so I think you got to put Wendell out there just because he can play. I mean, Bobby can play too, but I think it suits him better to be a backup.
Right, and another thing is when a starter's named, it's not like it's not subject to change.
Right.
I mean, lineups change throughout the NBA all the time. So if you want to start Bobby or you want to start Carter Jr., and one of them is not playing up to expectation, then there's no reason why you can't go to your bench and say, all right, you're in the starting rotation now. Mm-hmm. But if I were to tell you that Wendell Carter Jr. was capable of scoring 13 points, grabbing 7 rebounds, and dishing out a couple assists per game, would you believe me?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's exactly what Bobby Portis did last year. Not to say that...
At the NBA level.
Yes, absolutely, but Wendell Carter also averaged better stats in college. I understand it's college, better stats in college, but we already seen it in the summer league that it can transfer over. Yes, it's also the summer league. He's not going against top-tier talent like the Western Conference or the better teams in the East. But with that said, I feel like those are still numbers that, if he was given 30 minutes a game, 32 minutes a game, it's very plausible that he could turn that into production.
I'm not going to sit here and knock Wendell Carter. He's a phenomenal player. I don't want you guys to think that I don't like him, and I don't want you guys to think that he's not going to put up good stats this season. I know he's going to. My argument is that he shouldn't be starting right off the bat. Bobby Portis didn't even get to start right off the bat because, they still had Joakim when he got drafted. So
yeah, they did.
And then they traded him to New York. Then they signed Lopez.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I feel like Bobby was better than Lopez anyway. But don't fry me in the comments for that.
Yeah.
But the fact that Bobby comes in and he's just proven he can get to the rim effectively. He's strong when he goes up and he can get boards. Wendell Carter, is he going to be able to do that? More than likely, yes. I just feel like that since Bobby's been with the Bulls through the garbage times, and we're still in a garbage time right now, that he should be able to start and earn his playing time like he's already done.
Well, this is the nice thing about Bobby, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, is that since being drafted in 2015, he has improved every single year. Minus last year, he took a dip in points, but everything else was looking better. His turnovers were down, his fouls were down. He had roughly the same assist and rebounds, so I mean, better free throw percentage. So in that regard, him building on top of last year, he also, that's where I got the 13 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, half a block. I mean, this is a guy who also in the Bulls stretch offense can shoot 36% from 3 on over 3 attempts a game. That's pretty solid when you're sitting next to Lauri Markkanen, who can play stretch 5, which is crazy to think we're talking about stretch 5s now in the NBA. But like I said, I'm not knocking you for it. If you wanted to start him, I would say to Coach Hoiberg, you go ahead. He's earned it. This will be his 4th year in the league. He probably deserves to start more games than he deserves to come off the bench this season. But it's going to come down to whatever works. Whoever gives you the most production, especially if you're the Bulls in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is the Bulls got to figure out what they're going to do.
This is a team that could very well make the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. And I know it sounds crazy because of how bad they were last year getting the 7th pick. But the 8th seed in the East is wide open now. Now that the best players who? Kyrie Irving? I mean, really. Joel Embiid.
DeMar, Ben Simmons.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, the East is wide open. Absolutely wide open this year.
So let's move on to the Bulls in Minnesota, the Timber Bulls. The fact that Jimmy Butler just turned down a $110 million 4-year extension. Tyson, what do you think?
I don't think that he's not going to re-sign with them, but it's not a max contract, and he's an all-star. He's a superstar. He's carried the Bulls for the years he was with them. Dude is a superstar, and I think he just turned it down because he wants that max contract. He sees everybody else getting them. He wants his too. So I think he'll go wherever is going to offer him that max contract, and since this wasn't that offer, he turned it down instantly. Now, if the Timberwolves want to come back and offer him a max contract, I think he'll gladly accept it. Stay up there with Tom Thibodeau and the rest of the ex-Bulls and stay up there and keep manning the team. But I think he wants that max contract. So I don't really have a problem with him declining this offer. He deserves more than that. That's for sure.
Right, and I'm not surprised that he declined this extension. Similar to the Paul George situation, if you decline, you're going to get more money.
Yep.
Now, this is the real question: is he can re-sign with Minnesota next summer for about $3 million more per year. Okay, anywhere else he can sign for $3 million less per year and one less year. So Minnesota can offer him 5 years. Any other team can offer him 4. The question is he going to be content with playing in Minnesota? Because there's been stories coming out of Andrew Wiggins really getting under his skin, his lack of effort, his lack of intensity. The same thing with Karl Anthony Towns. This younger generation of players. Jimmy was drafted in 2011. Mm-hmm. These guys were drafted 2014, 2015. So something happened in between those 4 or 5 years that didn't really kind of rest with Jimmy very well in their attitude when it comes to the game, when it comes to practice, when it comes to defense.
Practice?
We talking about practice?
You can see in this younger generation is our generation, the three of us in this room, because we're all about the same age as these guys.
Right.
You can see how much more lazy they are than guys like Jimmy Butler, LeBron, anybody like that. It's the fact that I agree with Jimmy. If he's not going to, or these guys like Cat, Wiggins, anybody that's going to help him or try to pick up the intensity a little bit, then why would he stay? He wants a ring, and he deserves one because he's my favorite player in the league, and he always has been and always will be. But he's not going to stay somewhere where he can't get a ring and a decent, healthy paycheck.
Right. Well, that and he's in the Western Conference, which doesn't help him. He barely made the 8 seed because he came back and pretty much willed the team into beating Denver in that pretty much play-or-go-home game at the end of the season. He averaged 22 points last year. I mean, what is this? 5 assists, 5 rebounds. This is an overall guy. It was exactly 2 steals per game, half a block. This is a guy that's been all NBA defense for multiple years. When he was in Chicago, he was a stud. The last 2 or 3 years he was there, absolute stud. Almost upset the Boston Celtics, the number 1 seed a couple years ago in the first round. Him and Rondo both were played very well in that series. This is a guy who I think is, if Wiggins and Cat don't turn it around, he's going to tell Coach Thibodeau, he's going to be like, look, I really enjoy my time here. I love you. I love Taj. I love Derek. I'm getting out of here. And he's probably going to end up going somewhere back to the East where it's open. He has the opportunity to get to the finals. I know it's not going to be Boston, but if he wanted to go to a team like the New York Knicks, team up with Porzingis, I think that would be a possibility, depending on how Porzingis comes back. Mm-hmm. But getting back to the overall decline of the contract, I'm not surprised. And he just, like you said, Tyson, he wants to get paid, and he will get paid by someone.
My question, to kind of bounce off of that, where do you think he's going to end up? Because there's nowhere left for him in the West to go. If he goes to any other team in the West, assuming he can't go to the Lakers or Golden State because they've basically used up all their space and money, if he goes to another team in the West, he doesn't make it to the Western Conference Finals. If he goes to a team in the East, he can't win a ring regardless.
The Lakers are his best hope in the West next year.
Which next year they'll have the space to have him come and sign for a decent contract.
And that's why they signed 5-6 players to 1-year contracts to open up that space again. It's like Magic Johnson said, he was making a 2-year plan. They've got LeBron this year. Next year there's guys like Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson. It's going to be a great class next year, including Kawhi Leonard, which is going to be an interesting story with the season coming up because he still has not been dealt. And it's going to be really interesting to see if the Spurs even keep him, because the option's still on the table for Kawhi to pick up that over $200 million 5-year extension with the Spurs. But if he does that, he's locked in there. He's going to have to be there unless he is dealt.
So I want to touch off of something that you said real quick. You said that he wouldn't go to Boston. Why?
They don't have the cap space, and I don't think Danny Ainge is willing to deal any of his pieces or draft picks.
We talked about this earlier. Me and Tyson are on the side that will say that he's not going to get rid of Tatum, Brown, or Rozier.
Absolutely not, no.
But
would he get rid of Tatum, Brown, or Rozier? One of the three. It wouldn't be Tatum or Rozier. It'd have to be Jaylen Brown, right?
Right.
That's
because Jimmy plays the same position.
So, what if they got rid of Jaylen Brown and some picks for Jimmy Butler?
Well, here's the issue with that is why not keep all three? And if you're going to do it, let Kyrie walk and sign Jimmy.
So you lose Kyrie to get Jimmy.
Yes.
To keep those other three.
Because then you could have Terry Rozier start. We saw how he played in the playoffs. He's very competent point guard.
Terry.
Yeah.
Scary Terry, absolutely.
He's going to be phenomenal for that Boston team, but why would you let Kyrie walk when you could have Kyrie and Jimmy B playing with each other all the time?
Well,
Jimmy G Buckets, we all know what that G stands for.
Listen, let's go back. Let's go back a year, okay, when Kyrie was dealt to the Celtics from the Cavs for Isaiah Thomas and Zizic and a second-round pick, right? In that deal, Kyrie, before it was even dealt, Kyrie went to Dan Gilbert and said, I want to be traded. This is my list of teams that I want to go to. It was the New York Knicks, San Antonio Spurs, Minnesota Timberwolves, Miami Heat, not the Boston Celtics. The Celtics were not on that list. His contract is up next summer. He's not going to stay. Unless that team ends up winning a title, which even if they do, I still don't think Kyrie is going to stay. Because, first of all, they're going to have to pay him because he's going to want a max deal. He's only making $20 million a year.
He deserves one.
Which he does, but I think it's arguable to say that he's been hurt so many times and missed so many games that maybe someone doesn't want to pay him that max deal. You know, and that's just, I'm not, and no disrespect to Kyrie, because when he is healthy, I think he has the best handles in basketball. He's probably a top 15 player. He's truly great. But I think, getting back to your very first question, Tyson, I think he'll end up in New York with Jimmy Butler. Because I think that, now hear me out on this, I think that the New York Knicks will have the cap, first of all, they'll have the cap space by that time. If Porzingis comes back healthy, I don't see why you wouldn't have a big three of Kyrie Irving, Kristaps Porzingis, and Jimmy Butler. I mean, there's no one in the East that could stop that other than maybe the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Philadelphia if Ben Simmons can improve his shot. Maybe.
I could see that.
They still got Mikal Fultz in Philly, though. He can shoot.
If his jump shot's fixed, yeah, if he can play. If he can play.
Because he didn't play very many games last year. He was out with some injury.
The shoulder injury.
Yeah.
The shoulder injury messed up his shooting form, which, unless he can get that back, I don't think that jump shot we saw when he was a Husky in Washington, it might be gone, and they're going to be in trouble.
My other kind of question that goes along with that is when Kyrie Irving left the Cavs because he wanted his own team. He was tired of it being LeBron and the Cavs. He wanted it to be Kyrie and whoever. So do you really think he'd go to a team that signed another max contract player like Jimmy Butler? Because Jimmy Butler's a great player. I don't know if it would be Kyrie and... It could be Kyrie and Jimmy, but it's definitely not going to be Kyrie and the Celtics. It's going to be Kyrie and Jimmy and the rest of the team.
You just said it right there. That's the thing, is but with Jimmy Butler, he knows that Kyrie would like to take over that team. And I feel like Jimmy would do that. He would be a good complementary piece, an amazing complementary piece to Kyrie.
Because he's not selfish.
He's not selfish, and we see that. Because what did he average? You said he averaged how many assists a game?
Oh, he averaged 5 assists a game.
So 5 assists a game, so that tells you right there he's a superstar that's willing to dish the ball.
Yeah.
So therefore, I feel like...
From a position that's not supposed to dish it.
He's supposed to get dished too.
Yeah.
Well, and he still put up 22 points a game.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Kyrie can do the same, along with hopefully Kevin Knox. I mean, I'd like to see how his NBA career pans out. But
right. It was the summer league, but he played very well in the summer league, which would be a nice fourth option.
And then you got Porzingis. So if that were to happen, which that's a long shot, but if that were to happen, that would be kind of surreal, and that would be ideal for Kyrie and both Jimmy, because Jimmy is one of the most unselfish superstars there is out there.
Right, and that's why I think they would be a great combination with Porzingis, because I think Kristaps being a big, in New York, you could have a great pick and roll with him and Kyrie. That would be Kyrie's show. Jimmy could be your defensive anchor, along with Kristaps. They're both great defenders. So I think that would propel the Knicks in the top 12 in defense, which they've been lacking for years. Even in the Melo days, they were awful, absolutely awful.
Jimmy loves defense.
Absolutely, and I think that's why he wants out of Minnesota, is ultimately because his two other co-stars are not putting in the effort on the defensive side of the ball. We know Andrew Wiggins can score, although his percentages are lackluster. We know Karl Anthony Towns can score from anywhere. He's one of the most efficient big men from the outside. But if you don't play defense, Jimmy's not going to be on board with you. That's why he likes guys like Taj Gibson. That's why he liked guys like Tom Thibodeau, a defensive-minded coach in Chicago. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. Next offseason for the NBA is going to be crazy once July 1st comes around, because obviously we had LeBron sign him with the Los Angeles Lakers this year, but next year is going to be crazy with all of these top-tier superstars possibly changing teams.
So that's the thing, is that we were all anticipating this LeBron decision, and it happened so fast. He took his max deal so quick that it just kind of killed the offseason. Like, I honestly don't even really care about what happens next.
Yeah, everything else has already pretty much fallen into place. I mean, this was the most exciting news that we've gotten in a week is Jimmy Butler and Jabari Parker.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's pretty much over for now, at least the offseason. But things could still come up. Teams are still, able to trade and, things
all the way up until February, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying the rest of the offseason, like before the season starts in October,
right?
We have all of this time. So things could happen. Like I said, Kyrie Irving wasn't dealt until August last summer. So crazy things could still be looming over the horizon. With that said, we're going to switch over to the MLB here. Cale, I'm going to start with you. Let me talk to you about Mike Matheny being fired by the St. Louis Cardinals. We know that him and Dexter Fowler didn't really get along too well. They didn't speak. Didn't really see eye to eye, so on and so forth. With that said, Fowler hit a home run in the first game that Matheny was gone. What do you think this has to say about his confidence or just the team in general?
So me and Tyson are going to agree on this. There's the fact that Mike Matheny got fired was the best thing that could happen for that Cardinals clubhouse. Mike Matheny, I respect him so much as a player, but not as a manager. I want to see player Mike Matheny, and I want to remember player Mike Matheny back when he was an all-star catcher. He should be a Hall of Famer. He will be, but he can't manage. Not all players that go into baseball that want to stay in it can't manage. We've seen that with Ryan Sandberg. He can't manage a team either.
Well, and we've seen it in every sport has that issue. The former players trying
Jason
to coach
Kidd,
or trying to be a general manager, right?
Even
the great Michael Jordan being the owner of the Charlotte Hornets, you see what he's done to that franchise.
Yep. But the fact that they got Matheny out of that clubhouse, they pulled up their bench coach, their interim, that Schilt guy. They like him. He's a good manager. He knows the sport of baseball.
He will be the manager for the rest of the season.
Yeah, they're not going to hire anybody else until the offseason, until they can find probably a veteran manager, which hopefully that's what they do. They don't hire some player that used to play to manage their club, because you just seen it doesn't work. So the fact that they fired him, that Fowler comes out, hits a bomb, he goes 1 for 4. That's kind of it's not good, but he still hits a bomb in his first plate appearance when he's back after he's gone. The Cardinals won that game. They snapped a 6-game home losing streak. So the only thing I see is the Cardinals going up from here, because they got rid of the
cancer,
the Achilles tendon in that clubhouse. So for me, I feel like the Cardinals could potentially save their playoff chances since they did it at the right time.
Yeah, you're right. We agree on this. Getting rid of Mike Matheny, that's the best thing the Cardinals could have done. He's been a below-average manager since he got in the league. The only reason the Cardinals have had average to close to winning seasons is because he inherited a good team. Last one in 2012.
Yeah,
so he inherited a good team when he took over in 2012. Other than that, below average, he's not a good manager. This is the best thing the Cards could have done. I don't see Fowler going anywhere but up from here. The Cards themselves, I still don't know about. We'll see where they come out after the break. I don't know about playoff chances, because they still got to beat the Brewers, who are going to fall off, and they got to catch up to the Cubs.
Here's the thing, real quick. Hold that thought. Is that the Cards are 7.5 games out of first behind Chicago. They're 5.5 back from the Milwaukee Brewers, who is holding the NL wild card race, and they're only 4 games out of that. Still got a long way to go, so just remember that.
But my other thing is that the rest of the NL West and NL East divisions, the top 2, 3 in each of those divisions are also really close to that wild card spot. So the chances of the Cardinals, in my opinion, beating out, say, Philly or Atlanta, as hot as they've played so far this season, or even Arizona or Colorado out in the West, I think the chances of the Cardinals beating them and making it to the playoffs are slim right now. Hell, even San Francisco, 4th in the West right now, is above the Cardinals. So we'll see where they kind of come in here after the break, how they come out after the break. But other than that, yeah, we agree completely. Getting rid of Mike Matheny was great move for the Cardinals.
They started off with the issue at hand, which was not Dexter Fowler, no matter what that Cardinals organization says. Mike Matheny was the issue. Mm-hmm. That issue is gone. So hopefully, even though me and you aren't Cardinals fans, if the Cubs don't make the playoffs at any point in time, and the cards are, I will watch the games. Not saying I'm going to root for them, but I'll watch them. So I'm glad to see that Mike Matheny's gone.
You always are interested in a division rival and how they perform in the playoffs, even when your team isn't there.
Right.
You know, you want to see how well they can do because that's what you went up against all year long.
That goes for any team in the National League, in my opinion. As long as it's a National League team winning that World Series, I do not care.
Except the Dodgers.
Minus the Dodgers.
Yeah, see, here's the thing, though,
Yeah.
is with me is it doesn't really bother me who wins the World Series because my team is in the American League, and when the Blue Jays are not there, I do root for Chicago, whether it be the Cubs or if you want to go back over a decade, it was the White Sox. So, and that's just because I'm an Illinois boy. That's the only reason why. Otherwise, I gotta go American League, and I know you guys grill me for that, but
Yeah, they're 23.5 games out of first at Boston, 14 out of the wild card. Your Blue Jays.
yeah, I'm well aware. I've been keeping up with them, but thank you for that, Cale.
3-7 in their last 10.
Yep, thank you. Let's go ahead and
Just
pour it
keep
on.
grilling.
Pour it on. Pour it on.
44 negative run differential.
Ouch.
All right, we're gonna move on here to the next. We're gonna move on to the next topic here. Bryce Harper. We got to talk about pretty boy in Washington. Bryce Harper jogged to first base in the top of the fifth inning to force a double play while down 4-1 against the Mets. This was last week. The Nats are 3-5 in their last 8 games, sitting third in the NL East at 48-48, so they're at 500 right now, 5 games behind Atlanta. Manager Dave Martinez spoke with Harper after the game privately and said that the conversation will stay between the two. Is this something that needed to happen, and why do you think that Harper jogged to first base knowing that a double play was in motion?
So I'm going to give you the entire story, and then Tyson's going to comment first since Harper's his boy.
Sure.
The thing was that Harper hit a lazy pop fly that dropped behind second base in that area somewhere because he's a lefty and it's always going to go to the right side of the field. He jogged to first base. He could have made it to second base to get out of that double play chance, which ended their inning and potentially a rally. The thing that pissed Dave Martinez off and kind of irritated me a little bit was we don't want that mentality in Chicago. Yes, he's playing for a trash team that can't get to the playoffs. He wants a ring. I understand that, but you have an opportunity to help your team. But anyway, the fact that he jogged to first base to then when he could have been on second to eliminate any chance of a double play is just baffling. He's a superstar. Kids look up to him. Young, minor leaguers that are coming up that are 10 or 12. What is he teaching them? Teaching them it's okay to jog to first base on a lazy pop fly? No, you need to be hauling ass and just running, flat out running like Pete Rose did everywhere on the field. That's what I have an issue with. So, but I know he's your boy. I wouldn't mind seeing him in Chicago, but if he's going to do that in Chicago, I don't want him.
Real quick, I want to add that this is one of the few MLB superstars that has multiple commercials and advertisement endorsements. And like you said, you don't want this to be role model behavior for kids that do watch the games that are not just national fans but baseball fans because they love the superstars.
Well, I've got some strong opinions on both sides of this kind of. There is nothing that drives me more insane than watching a guy getting paid millions upon millions of dollars a year not try. So jogging to first base, it drove me nuts seeing this dude, especially a guy that always plays so well, plays with his heart for everything. To see him kind of jog there and not try and not give a crap what was happening on the field, it really kind of hurt to see that, and I was very, very disappointed. And then at the same time, I realized they've already played over 80 games this year. He's on a bad team that's not really giving him any help. We're a day away from the All-Star break. So at the same time, I do cut him a little slack. They played a lot of games. He's not playing well. The team's not playing well. I think he's in recuperation mode at this point. Everybody just needs a break on that team, just needs to kind of chill out, have a couple days off. So at that point, I don't completely fault him. They could have won that game, put themselves in a little bit better situation, especially against the Mets.
Yes, that's
but
good.
So I don't 100% fault him for not going balls to the wall. But I still would have loved to see it. I hate not seeing effort. NFL, MLB, NBA, guys that can just jog up the court or down the base path, or you can just jog around and not give your all, especially if you're an all-star like this, making oogles of money that you don't even know how to spend. It kind of drives me nuts.
if Harper were to come to Chicago this next offseason, if it were to happen, Theo's not going to put up with it, and Joe sure as hell ain't going to put up with it. Joe is going to want out there, yes, have fun, yes, do your thing. You know, if you got to blow off some steam like Contreras does, throwing his equipment around in the dugout, that's fine. Let it happen, get it out, and it's done. It's over. We're not going to talk about it anymore. But Joe is going to want your full hustle, or he'll put you on the bench. Mm-hmm. He'll put David Bodie, who's my guy on the Cubs right now. Besides Wilson Contreras, David Bodie's having a heck of a season right now. But anyway, he's going to put you on the bench and replace you with Ben Zobrist, replace you with Bodie, replace you with Happ, guys that are going to give them their 100% and win you games. Even Almora. Almora can hit just as well as Harper can. But
this year at least.
If that continues, that's another subject. But if he's not going to give his 100%, I don't want him here. That's the thing. Is he's a superstar? Yes. But I want to see him go all out all the time, no matter what situation it is. Even if the team's doing bad. They had a chance to beat the Mets this weekend and help their divisional race. But, that ain't going to happen if Harper's going to be out here and run or just jog. I know it's a one-time thing, and everybody's going to sit here and pick at him for the bad things, like he's not running to first base. He's only batting .270 on the year. I understand all of that. And he's got a lot to deal with being a superstar, but this doesn't help him at all.
Well, and that might be jumping off the deep end a little bit to say you don't want him here, but I agree with what you're saying if he's not going to put in the effort. But even if he doesn't put in that effort, when he's on the field, magical things happen.
Right.
They just do. So I agree with you. If he doesn't want to put in that effort, I definitely don't want to pay him a super crap ton amount. But I'd still like to see him here just because he does make magic happen.
Speaking of super crap ton of amounts, we did that with you, Darvish, and now look where we're at.
Yep.
So,
all right, switching gears here, we need to talk about Michael Fulmer from the Detroit Tigers. A couple of days ago, he voiced his concerns about the umpires and their inability to call strikes correctly, saying that maybe we need to move on to the electronic strike zones. Would this be a good or bad idea, Tyson?
Hey, he's a baby. What an awful idea. Let's just have a pitching machine out there on the mound too. Hey, what's the point? He's just being a. What did he strike out like 3 times that game or something?
Yeah,
he's
just
being
bad
a
game.
Baby.
Well, for some contextual background, this was after giving up a season high 10 hits and 7 runs in 4 2/3 innings.
Yeah,
He
had a bad game and wanted to take it out on something, and he just came out looking like a puss. I've got nothing else to say.
Sorry for all the kids listening.
He's finding something. He's making excuses for his poor performance. And you know what? Even if that umpire was inconsistent, or he called bad strikes, he called them on both sides of the field, no matter who was pitching. He called inconsistently, consistently. Yes, it might have been off the plate a little bit, but he called that off the plate strike every time it was right there. There's no. It takes the human aspect out of the game. The error is part of baseball. That's the thing. And like I just said, inconsistently consistent. So if it's off the plate this time, it's off the plate the next time. The strikes are all the same throughout the whole game because you got the same guy making the same calls the whole game.
Which you should be able to figure out at some point. Okay, I figured out his strike zone after the first inning. This is where I needed to throw it. Why not just adjust being the pitcher instead of blaming it on the umpire?
Yeah, you want to stand out there and get paid more and more and more every year, but you don't want to do any of the work. So basically we should just put a pitching machine out there and pay him to sit on the bench so he doesn't hurt his arm or his head
stub a pinky toe.
Yep.
But for the electronic strike zone thing, we have the pitch cast on the TV screens now. It's on every broadcast network ever. We have that shows us exactly where the pitch is. The only questionable issues there are is with those borderline pitches. That's it.
Right.
If they're high or low, that's fine. They're big leaguers, like Gab said. You have to adjust to that strike zone. You figure it out in the first 2 innings. Yeah, you may go 0 for 2 or 0 for 3, but after that 5th or 6th inning, maybe even the 7th, you have that strike zone figured out what he's going to do or where he's calling them at. But the only thing I have an issue with is that you see this not all the time because not all umpires are like this, but they do change that strike zone depending on the situation of the game. So, like, if we have a tie game going into the 9th inning, then yes, that strike zone may expand or shrink. or in extras. It probably expands a little bit because he's out there getting tired. Well, he's making a decent amount of money a year to umpire that game. If they're going to do that, that's the only issue that I have, is that with the human aspect of it, is they need to make their strike zones consistent every time. Now, they're inconsistently inconsistent. I understand that, but it's only the instances that, inherent, like wanting to make the strike zone bigger or smaller at any given time. That's not okay. That's like high school basketball games. An official, making a call in the fourth quarter with 30 seconds left and the team's down 3 for a momentum shift. Mm-hmm. That's essentially what it is, if you boil it down into a nutshell. But this whole electronic strike zone thing is nuts. It takes the human aspect out of the game. I'm writing a paper on this in my English class at Parkland. Human aspects and everything. We're building robotic dogs and stuff now. But anyway, it takes the humans out of the game. These umpires are right almost 95% of the time. Every now when they call them replays, they're very rarely wrong, even though because there has to be definitive evidence to why they need to overturn the call. It's just a human thing, and it's been in baseball ever since baseball's been a sport. So why change it? If they're going to be right, just leave it the way it is. Don't change nothing about the sport of baseball. And it factors into that pace of play stuff too. They've already limited mound visits. They've limited the amount of time that bullpen pitchers have coming onto the field to like 8 seconds. As soon as they get out of the bullpen onto the field, they have like 8 seconds to get to the mound. They only get 10 warm-up tosses. So there's a whole bunch of things that they do to affect the pace of play. And just need to leave the strike zones alone. Just leave it to the umpires.
Yeah, they've already done things, like you said, to speed up the game because we know sometimes baseball can take 5-6 hours just to get through one game.
Yeah. Right.
They've narrowed it down to almost 3 hours in one game. You can almost get through one in 3 hours.
I'm not going to sit here and say that the pace of baseball is super fast. It's not.
It's not supposed to be.
But you're an NBA fan. You're an NFL fan. How long do these NBA games take? How long do these NFL games take?
About 3 hours.
There's just not near as much going on.
Right.
As me being a diehard baseball fan as I am, I would rather sit here and watch a pitcher's duel with a nothing game than sit there and watch an NFL game, in my opinion, because I'm a bigger baseball guy. It's the same situation. Wrong. It's the same thing. You like your sport, the NFL.
I get you.
Somebody scores a touchdown at 7-3. That's the only thing that happens in that whole 4 quarters. It's the same premise.
Right. No, and believe me, I understand because every sport has its attractions. But I think what they're trying to get at, and this is just coming from a guy that doesn't watch a whole lot of baseball, is that they're doing anything they can to make the game, I don't want to say as perfect as possible, but they want to limit as many mistakes as they can. Mm-hmm. So with that said, I think that's where the idea of this machine comes up. And don't get me wrong, I'm not backing this. I'm all for human error. And right. I think that's what officials and referees and umpires, that's what they're for. That's what they get paid to do, is try to officiate the game to its best ability to make it as fair as possible, right? Mm-hmm. Now, with taking them away from the game and you get these machines that are the definition of perfection, yes, that would make it to where every strike is always the same strike, but then where is the fun in variation?
Yes.
Where is, coming into every game and having that thought in the back of your head of where is the strike zone going to be at for this guy on this day? It's the little things, and I also think it has to do something with tradition. You don't want to see that go because then what's next? Right. They replace officials in the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, college sports. You don't want to see that.
And then for long, we don't even have humans playing the games. We got robots out there.
Exactly, so. And that. Yeah, I don't agree with it either, but I can see from the position of like a perfectionist why they would even consider this idea, although I do not agree with it.
I love having the electronic strike zone on my TV at home. And I love that because I like comparing it with the actual umpire that's out there. It gives me something to yell about. It gives me something to get excited about. It gives, that was a strike, even though he called it a ball. Or what. It still makes the game fun to interact with. If they make it so it's perfect 100% every time, that hit that corner of the strike zone, that's a strike for sure. There's no question about it. The players can't argue anymore. The umpires can't argue. I can't argue with my TV. I can't yell at anybody. I can't do it. It takes out all interactions of the game. It makes it completely unfun to watch at that point. In my opinion, there's just nothing to get excited about anymore.
In the MLB, they've got it to where you can't argue balls and strikes anyway. You can't have them replayed or whatever.
when a player gets ejected from arguing balls and strikes, that just makes my day. I love it because you can't argue balls and strikes, but you can do it because there's a human back there, and you can you can say your piece to a certain extent, or unless that umpire's got thin skin and he's just going to toss you right away. But if you get rid of that, then there's no fun. You can't watch Anthony Rizzo or Ben Zobrist or Bryce Harper. He loves arguing balls and strikes. But you can't watch guys like them, getting these grudge matches with these umpires, getting heated and everything else.
Real quick, I want to touch on this a little bit off topic, but I tell you, one of the funniest things for me to watch is when a pitcher unintentionally hits a batter and the umpire tosses him anyway. That really makes my day, because I'm like, that's I think it's abusing power at some point, because it's like, what?
I don't like you. You're out.
Yeah, if there was no tension whatsoever for that to happen, and even if the pitcher is like pleading his case and like apologizing, and he still tosses you out, I find that utterly ridiculous.
The only time I ever really see that is if they're intentionally throwing at somebody's head, which is rare. I mean, you can really hurt somebody by doing that.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like unintentionally injuring someone, like not on purpose, but you still get tossed.
But for that, if you can tell as soon as that ball leaves that pitcher's hand if it's intentional or not by the angle of where it's going. So typically they should issue a warning to both benches before they start ejecting people.
Thank you.
That's the thing, is that it's in the rules of the baseball and the rules of MLB that the umpire should issue warnings to both teams if it's unintended or whatever, not malicious. You can, like I said, you can definitely tell if somebody's throwing at somebody's head or throwing at them. I don't even mind when pitchers throw behind them when they're a little, a little irritated with somebody. That's just the part of baseball. That's what makes it interesting.
This is what I want to come full circle, though, is having said that, when pitchers hit batters with the baseball and you take away the umpire, who's gonna, who's gonna officiate from behind the plate? A machine's just gonna sit there. You can't. Unless you have an umpire there with the machine, but the official call is the machine, but the umpire's there for human interaction. I really don't see how they would be able to balance this whatsoever.
No, it just won't work.
No.
Man up, Michael Fulmer, you baby.
And Ben Zobrist, because last year he said the same thing when he got that called third strike on him. That was on that lower outer edge.
This is one more thing that I want to add before we move on to the next topic. This is coming from a bottom feeder in the American League in the Central Division. Like, can you just suck it up? Like, your team is already terrible. You play for Detroit, for God's sake. Just let it go. You had a bad game.
Yeah, your team is 12.5 games out of first, 17.5 out of the wild card. So
12.5 games out of first in the AL Central.
Yeah.
Literally the worst division.
The worst, yes.
Listen, with that said, let's go ahead and move on here because we got a few more topics to get through. The Milwaukee Brewers, they're 2-8 in their last 10 games. Chicago Cubs have taken a 2-game lead in that division. Chicago also has the best record in the entire National League. With that said, you guys pretty much called it. I'm just going to throw that out there. The Brewers fell off. Cardinals are staying mediocre. The Cubs went ahead and took first in the division. Best record in the league. So, not National League, not overall. Right. But with that said, I mean, is there really too much to add? You guys hit it right on the head with that one.
Other than me and him been right about almost everything we've predicted ever. We call this every year. Except it's either the Brewers or the Cardinals. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yep.
And we're going back to me and him calling things. We told each other, whoever beat the Pittsburgh Penguins this past season in the NHL playoffs was going to win the Stanley Cup, and look what happened. So it just says that me and him typically aren't wrong. So if we're going to tell you to bet somebody, we're going to tell you should probably put some money on them. Just kidding. Don't do that.
Yeah, gambling's frowned upon, kids. Don't go out and start asking your parents to put money down on sports games and stuff like that, please.
But yeah, no, for Milwaukee to fall off, kind of figured it was going to happen. They're riddled with injuries right now, and they have been for the last couple of weeks. I'm surprised they hung on this long.
Me too.
Because typically it'd be 2 or 3 weeks before the All-Star break they start losing. So like now they're 2-8. Their last 6 they've lost them. So they're not doing so hot. They got Pittsburgh coming up after the break.
Which Pittsburgh is actually...
Atlanta, excuse me. They lost to Pittsburgh 6-7. They got Atlanta, pardon me, coming up after the break on the 7th.
And they got swept by the Pirates, didn't they?
Yes, they got trounced,
0-5
routed by the Pirates. Which is good for us because that, like I said, that put us 2.5 up. So it's a good thing for the Cubs.
Which Pittsburgh was actually like 9 games or 11 games back or something at some point. Yeah, they're 9 back from first now, but they're only 6.5 back from Milwaukee. So the Pittsburgh's coming on a little bit strong here as the first half of the season comes to a close. So Pittsburgh might make it interesting in the middle of the NL Central there, and kind of play around with Milwaukee and St. Louis a little bit more. But as far as the Brewers dropping 8 of their last 10, not surprised. Like Cale said, we've been talking about this for weeks. It was a matter of when, not if. Absolutely not surprised that the Cubs have now gained first place by 2.5 games. Not surprised at all. I'm not really even surprised that they took first in the NL. The Phillies and the Braves will still be interesting. Los Angeles, Arizona, a couple of the other teams in the other divisions will keep it interesting. But as far as the NL Central is concerned, I'm pretty sure that race is over.
The Cubs have a smooth lead right now.
Mm-hmm.
They have the best lead in any division in the NL because Atlanta is only half a game back from Philly, and Arizona's only half a game back from LA. Then 4 teams right there have been battling for first all season, and that's really interesting. And that's going to come down to the wire, in the next couple weeks. But too, the fact that you touched on Pittsburgh, out of their last 10, they're 8-2. And they're only 2.5 back out of St. Louis, who's in third. So St. Louis, when they may heat up now that Matheny's gone, but I don't know if it's too late or not. And Cincinnati, real quick, they're 13.5 back. They were almost 17.5 at one point this season, and they're 6-4 in their last 10. So the NL Central is kind of just heating up a little bit, and I don't really have an explanation as to why, except for Chicago. They're the only ones that have the pieces to do so. Milwaukee does as well, but
Cincinnati is playing really well within their division right now,
right?
Which is very surprising, being that it's the best division, arguably in baseball, but without a doubt in the National League.
I want to start a petition where the Cubs don't have to play the Reds. We're bad against the Reds this year. So we're not even 500 against them, I don't think.
No.
So,
and it's not just Chicago either. I mean, they play well against the Cardinals. They play well against
Milwaukee.
Yeah, really anyone. Well, maybe except Pittsburgh. I don't have their statistics against Pittsburgh.
But since I'm a Cubs fan, I want to start a petition where the Cubs don't have to play them anymore, and then they play Pittsburgh, St. Louis, and Milwaukee. Just help us. So that's where I'm at.
Real quick, I want to switch gears here. That was actually a decent segue into staying in the National League. I want to talk about the National League West division, okay? There are 4 teams in that division that are separated by 4 games, all right? We got the Dodgers, we got the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, the Giants, and then the lonely Padres sitting way down there in the 5th place. Out of these 4 teams, I do think it's very plausible now, knowing that my baseball knowledge is not up to par with you gentlemen, but I think it's very plausible that anyone wins this division. I think anyone could come out of the West on top. And even right now with Colorado and San Francisco being 3-4, they could end up being 1-2 at some point. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, but call me crazy.
No, you're absolutely right. This division, it's up for grabs right now. Los Angeles is leading it. Don't expect that to stay for long. I think that first spot will change 10 more times at least by the end of the year. Arizona's going to jump up in it a couple times. Los Angeles will regain the lead. We'll probably even see San Francisco grab the lead for a minute or two. Believe Colorado's going to be in it all the way till the end. All these 4 teams are very competitive. They've all been playing really well so far this year. They show up when they need to show up. If I had to kick one team out of it, I'd say it's San Francisco. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about pleasant surprises, and I brought up San Francisco saying they're only this many games out, especially after last year they played awful, which I still think they're kind of in recovery mode from last year. So I don't expect their playing well to continue, but it's very possible they could stay in it. But I think give them a couple weeks, and it'll be Los Angeles, Arizona, and Colorado. But what a great division so far. Very competitive. It's a lot of fun to watch.
I agree with you 100% on that. It's one of the most phenomenal divisions, right, in my opinion, right behind the NL Central, talent-wise. But real quick, going off of that, you said that Colorado is going to be one of those teams and not San Francisco. I want you to name somebody besides Charlie Blackmon, Trevor Story, or Nolan Arenado on the Colorado Rockies roster.
That's about it.
Exactly. That's the reason why they won't be in there with the Giants. The Giants have Mad Bum, Cueto, Posey, Belt, Crawford. They have guys that have been to the World Series and have won one. So that is why except minus Cueto, I don't think he's got one yet. But That is why they will be up around there with LA and Arizona as opposed to Colorado, even though they're on a heater right now, as Gavin wants to talk about.
Well, that's what I want to say is they're going into the All-Star break on a 6-game winning streak. And, yes, I can't name anybody out of those 3 guys, but
they got DJ LeMahieu and Ian Desmond. They've got some other pieces.
But
old.
Real quick, though. I don't. It's like you're going to bring up another team here in a second, who I don't want to call them scrubs, but they have the lowest payroll in the MLB. They're kind of coming out of nowhere, and they're playing in the American League in the Western Division with Houston and Seattle. Okay, if you haven't picked up by now, yeah, I'm talking about Oakland. Okay,
I can't wait for that debate. Let's say that.
Nobody thought that they were going to be anything this year, and if you did, well, you need to be betting in Vegas. But getting back to the West in the National League real quick, I can't not hop off the Rockies bandwagon only because San Francisco has the second worst away record in the entire MLB. That's not good because you play half your games on the road.
Yep.
So how do you expect to win your division when you can't win in other people's stadiums? I mean, yeah, they play really well at home, but it's the exact opposite. It's like a flip-flop. So if you want to be a 500 team, how do you expect to win your division? That's the only question that I pose because Colorado, they're 500 at home, and they have a 6-game above 500 on the road. This is a team that's gone out and done it, and they've proven that they can keep up at least in their home field. So with that said, that's why I think the Rockies right now have the best chance of making it in a top 2 spot in the West. I ultimately think the Dodgers will come out on top in that division, and then I think they'll beat out Arizona for the 2nd spot.
I do too. I think LA is going to come out on top, basically because LA is LA. They've still got everybody from their previous runs in the playoffs, especially last year, their World Series run. I disagree with you for the fact that Coors Field is one of the hardest fields to play in. Not only that, you're in Denver. You're a mile high.
Absolutely.
You're a mile above sea level. It's extremely large. That's one of the biggest fields in the NL division, and it's extremely hard to win there because of the environment too. So, yes, playing on the road, it's a hard win in for road teams playing in Coors Field in Denver. Excuse me. But you got to remember they've only won 23 games at home as well. Yeah, they can win them on the road, but part of winning playoff games later in the season when we get to August is winning at home.
Right.
But they're not going to be a home field advantage team in the playoffs.
Right.
They'll be playing more away games than home games.
That's what I was going to get at next. Is that yes, they're going to be playing more away games, but at the same time, if they want to make a run, they got to win at home. Everybody's got to win at home.
Right. Well, I'm saying though, if you're Colorado, yes, and you make it in. Let's say they get the 5 seed. I think that you want to be a higher seed just so you get more home games. That's more revenue. But in terms of winning, like you said, it's kind of quirky because they want to be a road team. So they don't have to play at home. They play better on the road. Like you said, it has to play into the conditions. But you would also think that the players are used to it. If you've been there, you're kind of used to that mile-high air.
Right, yeah, they are for sure.
Right. So even if they do, I think it goes either way for them because I think if you play 500 at home, if you can split the series at home and then go and take a game on the road, even if it goes 5 or 7 or whatever series you're playing in, I think that you're in good shape, especially being in the National League. That's just where I'm coming from.
I just don't feel like, honestly, later in the year, this is extremely hypothetical. This is me reaching. This is my mid-season. I'm already looking forward toward the playoffs mode. So bring on the unfair standings. But the fact too that Colorado is not going to have enough gas to get out of the NLDS because they're going to have to play potentially LA or Arizona or even San Francisco. So I just don't feel like they're going to get out of it. I don't feel like they have enough juice to get out of it.
I don't think any of these teams are World Series contenders besides LA.
They're the most,
No, I'm not going to argue that. I'm just saying to get out of the division.
Yeah,
we all
agree. To get out of the division, LA is the only contender for sure. The run differential from first to fourth, even though there's only 4 games separating the 4 teams, LA's got an 82 plus. They scored 82 more runs than all their opponents this year. Arizona's at 43, and then the next 2, Colorado and San Francisco, are -1 and -26. So San Francisco, they're having a hard time with their pitching, keeping runs off the board. Even though they've won more games than they've lost this year, they haven't scored as many runs as their opponents have. That's my one thing with San Francisco, why I don't think they're going to make it out. Unless their pitching drastically improves and they start scoring some more runs, you can't win that way. being minus 26 and still having an above 500 record, that's great for now, but it can't last. Same with Colorado. They are -1, but they're 6 games above 500. That's a little bit closer to even. That one's a little bit more understandable. That's the only reason I went with Colorado over San Francisco. I don't think either one is going to make the playoffs. I think Arizona and Los Angeles will. But I don't think anyone's really a threat besides Los Angeles.
I just want to add real quick is I don't like Arizona's cold streaks that they've been on lately, and the fact that Colorado's going into the All-Star break. They're getting a break on a 6-game winning streak, beating Seattle. It's a very competent team
in their last 10.
Right, very competent team in the American League. Second place in their division behind the Astros. I think that was quite a feat that they kind of conquered, if you will. Being a team, like you said, that was hovering around 500, now they're 6 games over it. I think they've got a little bit of a cushion here, only being 1 run under. I think that's going to go up here after the All-Star break. So, I don't know. I'm picking Colorado to go over the Arizona Diamondbacks.
That's a fair trade. They got the pieces. I just don't feel like they have the gas, and the gas being that bullpen.
Right.
So it all comes down to pitching in the playoffs. Yeah, you can score as many runs as you want, but if you can't pitch effectively or have guys that can pitch, 3 to 4 innings out of that bullpen if need be, then they're not going to make that good of a run. That's just me.
Fair enough. Well, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last topic here. We need to talk about Bleacher Report's MLB Power Rankings going into the All-Star break because this has got me a little tilted, and I'll tell you why. Number 1, they got the Boston Red Sox. Number 2, they have the Houston Astros. Number 3, New York Yankees. Number 4, your guys, Chicago Cubs. And number 5, this one I swear is the biggest head scratcher. Number 5, they have the Oakland Athletics.
All 5 great. All 5 for this going into the break. A great Power 5.
I can't fathom why anyone would have Oakland number 5 right now, being third in their division. They're not even a top 5 team in their own conference. I can't. Go ahead, Cale, and explain this to me. Why Oakland is the 5th best team in the MLB going into the All-Star break?
They're the 5th best team in the MLB because they have Houston, Seattle in their division. 2 teams that are being so-called contenders right now. Houston coming off of a World Series championship last year. They are 8 games back out of first from Houston. Seattle's 5. They're 2 or 3 games off Seattle right now for second place. Wild card, they're only 3 out. That's why they've completely flipped their season around. They're 7-3 in their last 10 on a 2-win streak. 24-21 at home, 31-21 on the road. They can win road games. They can win home games with a bunch of scrubs nobody's heard of before. That's the thing that I like about baseball is you can put all of these guys that you never heard of before. I'm going to name a few of them here in just a second to win games. Jed Lowry, their second baseman, replaced Gleyber Torres for the All-Star game this year because this year because Gleyber Torres suffered a hamstring injury and they don't want to ruin him in the All-Star game. Don't blame him because they want to make a playoff run. So Jed Lowry this season's batting .285, second base. Chris Davis, if you don't know who that is can swing it. He can stick it. 51 runs scored this year. Marcus Seaman, 51 runs and tied at shortstop with Crush Davis. Home runs, Davis again, 21 this year. Davis again, runs batted in, 64. Those are just the team leaders. You put him in, compare him to the rest of the AL when you got Benintendi, Martinez, Betts. He's right up there with them. So they got all-stars on this team. Pitching, you got Sean Manaea. He's got 9 dubs this year. Blake Teran out of the bullpen, 24 saves. And Manaea again he's got a pretty high earned run for a closer, which is you don't ever want to see. But he's got a 3.42 ERA, which is leading the team. That's kind of sad. But he's also leading the team in strikeouts with 83 as a closer. That's what you want to see. So to sit here and say that the A's, my dad's going to love this because he's been talking about the A's for the last couple of years because he likes them. He likes all these garbage teams. I don't know why. I mean, he's a Cubs fan at heart, but he's always going to talk about these weird teams just to get me all riled up. The fact that they're going to come in and they're going to win 7 out of their last 10, they're going to swipe or just completely rout the Giants. They won the series, who's potentially a contender. They're just really good in my opinion.
Well, the Giants, let's keep in mind, they're also 4th place in their division. Okay, yes, it's close, but there's a reason that they're down there. I can't say that they're okay. I'm not saying that I'm not pleasantly surprised by Oakland. Okay, they're a top 10 team in my opinion, but teams that are better than them right now, I got the Phillies better than they are. I got the Dodgers better than they are. I even have the Mariners at this point in time better than they are. How are they a top 5 team in baseball?
I think where you're getting confused is this is a power ranking and not a ranking.
It's a
No. I'm not even going based off record.
Who's hottest.
I'm saying purely based off the talent on that team. I would say those 3 teams right now are better.
Better, I have a hard time with that because Oakland's 7-3 in their last 10. Just in their last 10 games, Oakland's been one of the top teams. They're only on a 2-win streak right now, but they're 7-3. The only other teams that can compare with that are Boston at 9-1 in their last 10, Pittsburgh at 8-2, and the Colorado Rockies at 8-2, and then the Cubs are 7-3 as well. So since it's a power ranking, I understand why they're up there in the top 5. I don't think they're a top 5 team. No, I think there are other teams that are better than them. But as of the last couple weeks, just watching these teams play, I think they yes and no to earning that number 5 spot. The reason I put them over Seattle is they've got a positive run differential of 24. Seattle's -2. And Seattle's also on a 4-game losing streak, and they're 3-7 in their last 10.
For a contender, that's bad.
They're completely flipped from Oakland over the last 10 games.
Right, but we've been talking about Seattle acquiring more pitching
right
for the playoffs, which I expect them to do, which is why I can't say that they're a better team. Okay, if you want to say Oakland's better right now, I guess I'm thinking long term here.
Right. No, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
Long term, Seattle is definitely a better team than Oakland, but because this is a power ranking, I agree with the ranking where they're at number 5. Because just based off of this power, this last surge over this last week or two, I think Oakland's played better.
The fact that if Seattle could acquire more pitching, then yes, they'll just breeze right past the A's. The A's are not that good. Let's be honest. But right now, they're one of the hottest teams in baseball for this upcoming past couple of weeks.
I'll give them that.
Right here's something I want to tell you. The reason why they are in this top 5 and for the week is they got the bullpen of the week as well. Their bullpen, they've got Ryan Butcher, Blake Teran, and Lou Trevino. I've never heard of any of these guys, but they made bullpen of the week. So that tells you right there that they're pitching pretty well.
Yep.
So therefore, if your bullpen is effective, then you're going to win games, and you're going to propel yourself to potentially a playoff run. Now, I'm not saying the A's are going to do that, but they could potentially if they stay hot like this. It's all about, in baseball, it's all about who gets hot at the right time, and the A's are doing it.
Well, this is the one thing, I guess, if I'm going to go ahead and argue it, is how did they make it in over the Dodgers? I mean, their run differential is a fraction of what the Dodgers are. They have a similar win streak, Dodgers at 6-4. You got the A's at 7-3. I mean, I would argue that the Dodgers play in a better division in the National League West, but
better division.
I would say
you got two World Series contenders in their division,
and I would argue that you have a couple here. I mean, I'm not going to say that the Diamondbacks couldn't be, but when the Diamondbacks are hot, they're a very difficult team to beat.
Oh yeah,
I'm not going to disagree with that, but I'm not going to sit here and say that they're in a better division. They got Seattle, who's playing phenomenal baseball. They're projected to win a World Series. And then they got the reigning 2017 World Series champs in their division.
And you also have jokes like the Angels and the Rangers.
Yes.
But the Angels can also win games because they got Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout, Albert Pujols.
Right, paired up with a bunch of scrubs. It's a very...
I'm with Gavin on this. I think the NL West is a much better division. You got the Dodgers, who came in second last year, lost in the World Series. You got Arizona, who is scary, scary good. They just can't seem to put it all together at the right moment.
They're not consistent.
Colorado, who's playing well, we know what they can do, and San Francisco, who's won 2-3 World Series,
two World Series in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
So,
I think the NL West is a scary division. There's a lot of good teams in there. San Francisco has won 2 World Series since 2013,
right,
and they're 4th in their division, and they haven't really gained or lost a lot from those World Series titles. The fact that they're in 4th is scary. So I think the West is a better division. I'm right there with you, Gav. I think you could totally throw LA up in that 5 spot in that power ranking.
Right.
But
listen,
I don't disagree with the A's there. But that one to me is kind of a toss-up. Like you can put the A's or the Dodgers there.
That's what I wanted to get at, is that I'm not knocking Oakland winning 55 games up until the All-Star break in that division. Very impressive. Like you said, it's okay. I guess I'm not going to call them scrubs. It's a bunch of no-names that really no one's been paying attention to. Even if you're in Oakland, you probably haven't been paying attention to them, right? But it was really surprising to me. I don't want to say that I was that I was shook, but I was a little tilted on that on the 5th spot being Oakland.
The A's just aren't really a team you hear about. So the fact that we saw them, I completely understand that a little shooketh. It's just not something you ever really expect to see the A's in any kind of power ranking or teams doing well, just because we don't ever hear anything about them. We don't really talk about them. We don't really care about them because they don't really ever do anything, but this season they're playing well.
Listen, the last time I heard about the Oakland A's was when they traded Josh Donaldson to the Toronto Blue Jays. That's how much I pay attention
Not
to.
Dallas Braden's perfect game?
Nah, no, I don't even remember that.
Moneyball.
Wow. But here's why I feel like the AL West is better than the NL West. Jose Altuve, Carlos Carrera, Justin Verlander.
I think Houston is better than the
Steven
NL West.
Piscotty.
That's about it, though.
Steven Piscotty. You got guys like that in this division. Crush Davis is out there now. Sean Manaea. King Felix.
Well, they also have the team with the second best record in baseball in the division.
Right.
So,
but they're going to sit here and battle with these two teams, or the team that's at the second best record in the major leagues.
I'll give you that. And I'm not. Listen, if you want to argue it, I can understand your stance on why the division's better. But when you have the runner-up from the World Series, along with a team that's won a couple World Series, along with a team that's put together a 6-game win streak going into the All-Star break, a team that we didn't expect to do that, being at 500, now they're 6 games above, plus a team that can, when they're really hot, they're a top 3 team in baseball. When they're really cold, they're in the bottom half of the league in baseball. So it's, I mean, to me, it's the parity that comes down to for me. That's why I think the division's better ultimately.
There's also 4 teams in the NL West that are above 500 compared to the 3. Well, I mean, LA's above 500 too, but they're 14 games back. So it's just not as competitive in the AL West as it is the NL West. 4 teams are separated by 4 games as opposed by Houston, and then everybody else is 5 games or more behind.
Right, that's what it comes down to for me. It's the parity. 4 teams with a winning record. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. You want it to be competitive. There's your competitive.
It's all right. We all know the Chicago White Sox are going to win the playoffs. But no, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the A's, they're the team. There's always one team in there every year that can sleep on you, or everybody's going to sleep on. And I feel like the A's are it this year.
You think they can make the playoffs in the American League?
I feel like they could beat Seattle in the division, possibly get them a wild card spot. I feel like they can. Let me say this: they've got.
If they can keep it up, I'll say that they have a shot. But like I said, I expect Seattle to buff up their pitching core, and once they do that, I don't think that Oakland's going to have any chance in hell at catching them. But that's just my stance on it.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, and I think that's exactly that last wild card spot. That is the race right now, Seattle and Oakland. I don't think there is another team in the AL that is going to compete for it. Tampa Bay is close, but they're in the AL East.
I saw someone say
and they're going to drop 12 more games
right.
against Boston and New York each.
Exactly.
Tampa Bay doesn't have a chance.
And I saw it on ESPN or something, and someone in Florida trying to preach that, the Rays are going to get the 5 seed. And I'm like, you're out of your mind.
The AL Central doesn't stand a chance. Cleveland's going to get a spot just because someone from that division has to get a spot. So the rest of that. So really, it comes down to Seattle and Oakland because Los Angeles isn't going to catch either of those teams. They're just there because they've got Mike Trout to hit home runs and Shohei Ohtani to throw it 100 miles an hour, and Albert Pujols to be old.
I can't say the Angels didn't try to get him help, but they didn't try hard enough.
No.
Absolutely not.
With as big of a payroll as they can have, they didn't try hard enough at all.
But really, it does come down to Seattle and Oakland. So we'll see where it goes out after the break.
Right.
After we see some of the acquisitions.
I tell you what, if you want to take the underdog in Oakland, I'm going to stick with Seattle. But if that's something that we can come back and debate in another week, I'm more than open to that.
I'll take Oakland all day. You got Seattle, I got Oakland.
For sure.
Tyson's going to sit over there and make sure we don't strangle each other at the end of the year.
All right, well, with that said, do we have anything else to add, gentlemen?
I don't. You got anything? Yeah.
All right, we hit every point on today's rundown. That's going to do it for us here at TCT. Make sure if you enjoyed today's video or any other episodes, you go ahead and hit that red subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that bell icon right next to it so you don't miss a beat. Make sure to follow us on our social media on Twitter at Cale. What's the handle?
At
sports_twin.
At sports_twin. I should know that by now. I'll get it down one of these days. But that's going to do it for us here. My name's Gavin Campbell. That's Tyson Snyder, Cale Fleming. We'll see you next time.